Hi, welcome back to Jess Checks Out, and I am Jess, and we're going to check out my December reads at the end of January. And why is that, you ask? Well, there were all of these, videos I wanted to put out before I got through, like the anticipated reads, some of the reviews that I had planned, stuff like that. The best and worst books of 2022 will be coming out at the end of January, like the last week of January, so be on the lookout for that. But that's how it's running. I also want to make sure that the lessons in chemistry review went up, because that way it's one of the things I have to talk about on here. So, alright, let's get started, shall we? So, in December, I started to read a little bit more. I think I read like 11, something like that, books. Any babbling you hear in the background, by the way, is my daughter. It's Sunday. It's time to film day. I'm trying to do this very quickly, and my husband is watching her, so welcome to baby babbling. And the way our apartment is set up, the living room and the bedroom are literally, you have to go through the living room to get to the bedroom. So there's not a lot of separation of space. Our apartment is less than 600 square feet, which for Americans I know can be kind of small for a lot of cities, and it's kind of small for me, but at least it's not a studio. Okay, so back to what we were talking about. Sorry about that. So I read 11 books. Most of them were romance, but not all. I ended up reading 2 of the HarperCollins books by accident, so I'm not going to talk about them. I'm going to try and make this a pretty quick video, honestly, because I have done a few videos talking about some of the, like half the books or more, so we don't need to do that again. Alright, so I did Heather from Bookables, 'Tis the Season Readathon, and that one was a blast. I read 5 Christmas books, and I will link all that below. I also did a thing where I read 2 Victorian books. Again, I will link that below, and talked about them, as well as the Christmas tag. So, one and done on that one. Alright. In general, I had a really good reading month. I had 4 or 5 stars, which is kind of amazing to end the year on. And let's get started. Alright. So, my handy dandy phone is right here. The strike thing is very confusing, by the way, because you don't know what to put on there and what not, because some of the imprints are valid, some are not, some can't. It's very confusing. So in general, just HarperCollins is out for me right now, because I do not have the time to untangle all these different imprints and what they can do, because they're all ultimately owned by HarperCollins, and HarperCollins is the one paying for them, right? Okay, so let's go to the 1 star, shall we? I did not have a single 1 star. Surprise. I know, right? I did have 1 2-star, and that was The Package, which I talked about in the Tis the Readathon. But basically, in that one, I felt like the writing was subpar. The story was way too convoluted for such a short story, and it fell flat. It was just way too much. Okay, and then I had a 2.5 star, which is also in the Tis Readathon, and that one was 8 Winter Nights. That was a Hanukkah story, and I felt like I'm not big on like pining for your friend's guy, even if you meet him first kind of trope, and that's exactly what that was. It just felt very difficult to handle, honestly. It didn't work for me. Okay, now I have 5 3-stars. Okay, so I have the Christmas Pawdcast. Again, Tis the Readathon. You can go there, but basically that's a Grump Sunshine. It involves a rescue dog named Mary. I think it's Mary. And it's very interesting. It's set in Colorado, so during Christmas, during a blizzard. Very common for, for small town romance type stuff. Okay, and then you have the Christmas Pact, which I read outside of the Tis the Readathon, and that one, I have all the thingies up here. So the Christmas Pact was, what if 2 people had their names flipped in reverse? Like, I think it was like Riley Kennedy and Kennedy Riley. And they kept getting each other's mail and stuff like that, right? So I thought that was pretty cute and unique and different. I gave it 3 stars because I think the idea was there. The execution was kind of but the overall plot for the holiday was perfectly fine. It fit everywhere it should. In that same vein, because I was trying to get to 120 books last year in December, and I had like, I think like 2 or 3 left. So I ended up doing New Year, and it actually wasn't that bad. It was pretty interesting. Again, like I have, for some reason, December was a month of animal books, and in that one, the hero, or not hero, but I guess the male love interest works in a kennel, and he kind of handles that, and he's a veteran with PTSD, and he's going to meet, the family, or not the family, but the workplace people and stuff like that. And he's just not sure that he fits in with this, high powered lawyer. And there was a lot of really good tension there. I think that if the book had been longer, I probably would have given it 3.5 or 4 stars, to be honest. It had the potential. Like, as a short story, it was really there. It's second in a series. I haven't read the first, but you can totally read that one and be fine. It works as a standalone if you want it to, and I'm glad it did, because I think it gave me a lot of insight. Again, the PTSD was very well covered. It wasn't sugar coated, but it wasn't his only defining trait as well. And for the lawyer, they took her and they made her as someone who was not insecure or anything like that. She was very secure in her relationship. She was secure around her family, stuff like that. There was just a lot of feel good moments in that. So honestly, it's a 3-star, but it was kind of really a good read. All right. And then I did Evvie Drake Starts Over. Now I know Heather, again from Book of Wolves, loves this book. I did not. I felt like the romance was shoehorned in, sadly. And I felt like it just did not do what it needed to do, and I felt like it was missing a lot of the oomph factor. It was women's fiction, which I love women's fiction, just to be clear. But I felt like it could have stood alone without having the relationship, and it would have been way better. Because it was her starting over, and yet you don't really see her starting over, because she goes from mourning her dead husband to being in a relationship. And I really think that they needed to have that in between, in that longer period of more than a year. It just, I felt like it was a little bit convoluted, and I felt like it needed a lot more work on maybe the tightening of it or whatever. And it's kind of sad, because I was actually an anticipated read for me. I bought it quite a while when it was on sale on ebook, and I was expecting to love it. I listened to the audiobook. That may have something to do with it, because I didn't care for the narrator that much on that either. But, who knows? All right. And then the last 3-star is All the Missing Girls. I like a good thriller, and I love one set in like the North Carolina mountains and, the Appalachian area, because I grew up in Atlanta, and you would go to, like Eastern North Carolina all the time, or Western Tennessee. Like, it was very common to go for short vacations there, because, you had like, Gatlinburg and all that on one side, and you had like, Pigeon Forge and stuff like that for Tennessee. And then for North Carolina, of course, you had Asheville, the Vanderbilt Mountain, well known, but also, you had that area of kind of quirkiness. And I appreciated that, because I've actually seen that area kind of die off since, people have gone more to taking planes somewhere and doing stuff like that. Unfortunately, the area has been declining, and I was really interested in this group of friends and how they had going on. It was told in like reverse order, so it was told like day 15, and so I think the story was there, but the plot and the big reveal was not, because it didn't really tell me anything, to be honest. I didn't feel like I didn't have any emotional attachment to any of the characters. They did not allow me to have that, because there was no real likable character, and sometimes that can work, but for me, in this book, that did not work, unfortunately. I listened to the audiobook on my Libby app because it was available, and I was like, hey, let's go with that, but not so much. I did not care for it, and I was sad about that, because I really wanted a good thriller, because I'm trying to get more into the genre, but that can be somewhat of a difficult moment, right? So that one was a low 3. Honestly, I probably would have put it at 2.5, but I was feeling like the writing was there, just not the level that it should be. So it kind of got the 3 stars. It kind of got like an average. Like, if you were to give it a letter grade, I'd probably give it like a C minus or a B. Just barely squeaking by. All right. Then I had 1 3.5 star, and that was 12 Days of Christmas, which I talked about in the Tis a Readathon. I'm saying, like, half these things are on videos. This is great. This is a quick video for me. And that one was by Debbie McComber, and it's a Grumpy Sunshine, and it talks about, like, how do you make someone enjoy Christmas and what do you do along the way. It's a romance, but it's kind of like, it's not a romance like, say, Tessa Dare is a romance. It's more like women's fiction romance. So there is a happy ending and all that, but it's not as overt as some of the other stuff. I guess we comparatively take a Hallmark film. Like, read that in Hallmark. And if you've ever seen Debbie McComber's work, you probably know, like, Mrs. Miracle, from, that had Doris Roberts playing the character. That was also a Debbie. So that's the kind of style. If you've seen that on Hallmark, it's one of my favorite Hallmark movies of all time, actually. Those two, I really miss Doris in that role. All right. And then I had 2 4 stars, and that was Sweet Talk. And that one was about, okay, so these 2 characters are texting each other, and it's an accidental texting because so the male lead accidentally texts the female lead and doesn't realize it because he has dyslexia, and he ends up texting her because he doesn't remember who she is in the phones, and he thought he was texting somebody else. So that happened, and there's a whole storyline behind it. I actually really enjoyed it. I thought it was really good. It's Kara Bastone who did Call Me Maybe in November, which I really loved, so I was happy to kind of continue on, and that's, I think, the last one in that series because it's about the 2 siblings, but I really found it fun. I appreciated the fact that the female character was very reserved, and not standoffish because she wasn't, but she was very reserved when dealing with him because they knew each other in real life, and he didn't realize how they did, but she did, and so it kind of created this whole world. But there was a lot of smart communication and smart letting things out. I found the writing to be really good. It was rom-com-ish. There was some moments, and I like how the resolution almost comes halfway, but it's not the resolution, but it's a resolution, if that makes sense. So it had a lot of really smart, intelligent things, and like, what happens if you know who you're talking to, but the person you're talking to doesn't realize who you are? And that's essentially what this was, and I thought that was fantastic. So that was an amazing ability of writing things down and kind of creating this world, and it had a lot of enjoyment for me as a reader. And I think Kara Bastone is probably one of those authors I'm going to enjoy reading whenever I come across her work, because Audible Plus will be leaving, and this is an Audible Plus one. And in that same vein of needing to fill the gap of finding 120 stories for 2022, I think it was like 116 or 117, so I just had a few books to fill. I found on Audible Plus a tale, Tail, as old as time, because again, apparently this was like the month of animal romances. And it's about what happens when you have the cat neighbor and the dog neighbor, and they don't get along, but their pets are a little bit mischievous. It's very short. It was like under 2 hours, but it was really cute. It's set in I want to say Miami, definitely in Florida. And you can definitely see the settings of what it was being written. And it was just fun and light and airy, and sometimes that's all you want. You don't want to get completely deep into something and have to go, oh God, what are we talking about now? Right? And so this is that feeling, and I love that about it. I thought it was really interesting how the characters created these tensions within themselves. It's a very quick, it's instant type stuff, but for 2 hours, a quick read, suspending disbelief to begin with. It has a really nice resolution. It's very fun. You follow along, you see some things. Again, it's instant love, and usually that's a turn off for me, but I actually didn't mind it on this particular one. Okay, now we're going to get to the 5 stars. Some of them I've already talked about, and I'll get to those in a second. So, I've talked about all of them. in various videos. So we have Mistletoe Magic, Lessons in Chemistry, A Christmas Carol, and the Christmas Hirelings. So Mistletoe Magic was in the Tis a Reason readathon, and that one involves a second chance romance with this young woman and a veterinarian. And they're trying to find the answer to what do you do with this kitten that was magically found on the doorstep, hence mistletoe. And that's got this very interesting look to it. It was very hallmarky, very fun. I would recommend it, honestly. And I think that, you probably should read it if you're in the mood for something interesting. Again, Audible Plus. But there is an ebook. I just was listening to the Audible because right now audiobooks are easier for me with my daughter. And my brain is the way it's wired right now. But I thought it was very well done. It was very quick. It was very easy. I'll have a longer review in the Tis a Readathon, but we'll see how that goes. You'll see how that is. But I really, really liked the feeling of this book. All right. And then we have Lessons in Chemistry, which there's a whole video dedicated to that came out right before this video came out on purpose. I did that one on purpose. So, in that one, you've got Elizabeth Zott, who is learning how to make her own way in a society that doesn't want her to have her own way after a tragedy and making things matter. I loved it. I thought it was amazing. The quality, the writing, the skill, the setting, the atmosphere, 5-star. Talk about that again more in it, and at the end of that particular episode, you can, the stinger is kind of funny. All right. So for A Christmas Carol, I really enjoyed Charles Dickens for once. It's the only time in my life I'm probably ever going to enjoy him. I find him about as interesting as Thomas Hardy. But I definitely appreciated, how Tim Curry narrated it and the way he made this make sense. And I thought that was a lot of fun. It felt very real. And real as in, like, it felt more real than what we see. Like, what we see on TV is basically based on one thing that's been redone, and doesn't always seem to match the actual, like, text of what's going on. And of course, then you have the Christmas Hirelings, which I keep wanting to call halflings, and I think that's entirely because my husband plays D&D. Hirelings, I had a short break. You will see why at the end of the video. But basically, this one was a really great Victorian. It did a lot of good jobs of creating a strong narrative about, another Ebenezer type Scrooge character. What happens if you have to redeem yourself, and what do you find out along the way? I found it very entertaining and very interesting. You can hear more about that in the video that I will link below for the Happy Holidays video. And that's all the books I read, guys. Seriously, like half of them were in other videos, so I didn't have to talk about them too much. I hope you guys have had a happy December. I hope January is going really well reading-wise. Let me know if you found a book that you found highly entertaining that, really made you stand out in December. Let me know what it is, because I'm always looking to add books to my, list. I don't do, like, gore horror very much, but I do everything else. As you can hear, my daughter is ready for me to get done, so I will get done doing this so I can go see my little girl. Okay, guys, that seems to be the ending of every video right now. Bye. Pause break. My poor little thing hit her head on the crib, and she's just crying for mommy, so mommy is giving her the attention that she wants. Hello. Iggy. Du bist okay. Du bist gut. Du bist gut. Yeah. Daddy makes me laugh. She likes to collect my hair. I don't know if you have a daughter that does that or a son that does that, but she likes to collect my hair. Especially my silver ones, which, granted, she has lots of chocolates for, but still, I find it funny and hilarious. You guys have better. You do better. Just do better. Do this better. How's this for stinger material?